Hi, everybody. My name is Gary Gomes, Dr. Gary Gomes. I'm a Vedic astrologer. I've been in astrology for the past, oh gosh, 32 years. Yeah, 32 years. And I'm also a former president of the Council of Vedic Astrology. I'm a Kriya Yoga priest or a Swami of the Kriya Yoga lineage. And I am also written on Vedic astrology, served as the president of the Council of Vedic Astrology, and am also a teacher at several schools. I teach courses myself, and also am a Reiki master and tarot reader, and I do a variety of other things as well. So I am concluding work on a book. Hopefully it'll be done for early 2023. And we are going to be moving to other quarters very soon. And I'll be able to give you a better presentation than we have right now. A better format, more clarity. That's about it. I am available for readings. You can contact me at 508-525-0001 or at either neibas@comcast.net or at Gary Gomes, the letter G, at gmail.com. And that's GaryGomes, G at gmail.com. Okay, so I'm going to get right into the chart right now because it's kind of a busy week. By the way, I just want to do a little bit more self-promotion. We do have more videos coming. I am going to have an interview with James Braha this coming Tuesday. It won't be live, unfortunately, but it will be uploaded shortly after. And I'm looking forward to it because I respected James and known James for quite a few years. And he's one of the best, especially in the American contingent of the Vedic astrology tradition. And I consider him to be a friend and a teacher. So he's a really knowledgeable person, been around for longer than I have. And it'll be a real thrill. So that's Tuesday. It'll probably be posted the same day. So this week we're going to focus on, oh, by the way, make sure you like, subscribe, and tell your friends about the channel because we are looking to increase membership, and we're going to get some of the truth about Vedic astrology out to you folks out there. I'm one more Vedic astrologer among a whole bunch, but I think I have a unique perspective to add, and I think I have a certain knowledge which a lot of other people don't currently have. So sorry if that sounds egotistical, but let's see now. And we're gonna put the captioning on. Hold on a second. I show the caption. So the live transcript is actually on again. And let's get to it because there's a lot to cover in the chart this week. Let's see now. So we're going to share the screen. This is the I think this is the more recent one. If it's not, I'll fix it. Yeah, this is true. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the share and start it again because there's always a problem. Oops, wrong chart. Sorry about that, folks. Stop the share. My apologies. All right, this is the right chart. I'm going to stop the share one more time. And the reason I'm doing this is mainly because Zoom is sometimes temperamental about sharing the screen. And we do have, as you may be able to see from the chart, we have a bunch of retrograde planets. We have retrograde Saturn over here. We have retrograde Jupiter. We have retrograde Mercury along with the debilitated Venus. Now, those things in and of themselves don't mean a whole lot to an audience that doesn't know that much about astrology. But these are cases in which we have some leeway. I like to look at retrogrades as sort of like do-over planets. So they can be unduly optimistic. They can be a little bit exaggerated, but they also gain directional strength. It's also an important day, mainly because we have a new moon today, and the new moon's in Uttara Falguni Nakshatra. By the way, I'm broadcasting on September 25th, 2022, and this is an important day. And the next 2 days, it's an important day to give honor to your parents, to your ancestors, to those who came before us. So it's a good time to do rituals for ancestors, to remember ancestors, to remember the lineage or the people that made it possible for you to reincarnate on this earth. So parents, grandparents, I just like to remember my parents, Fernando Fred Gomes and Alice Marjorie Hughes Gomes. And they were pivotal in my life in terms of encouraging me to learn and to expand. I like to remember my brother and his family. My brother is still with us. And I have nieces and nephews. I like to remember my grandfather, my grandparents from both sides of my family. One in Fall River and originally from Portugal, and the others both from England. So both my grandparents were from Portugal, and they sacrificed a lot to bring us here. And I'd like to take a moment of silence just to remember them and just to okay. So it's also so around this time of the year, pay close attention to the new moon, because this is the time when you can honor the people who brought you into this world. The chart. So we have retrogrades. We're going to talk a little bit about the retrogrades and what they're doing. So the first thing we're going to look at with this chart is we have the world's in kind of an uproar right now we have presidential elections in the United States. We still have the war in um, in Russia. We have threats of war in places like China and Taiwan. Uh, there are also escalating military tensions. Around mid-October, Mars goes retrograde. This will be after Mercury goes direct, so that's a bit of a relief. But also, there is a feeling that the retrogrades give us permission to make choices. They give us an allowance to change our destiny a little bit. The planet's energy becomes stronger, so we can have, let's say, regrets over family or regrets over, so from this chart, regrets over family or making amends or atonements with family. Even even make atonements over career, okay, because Mercury's in is retrograde in the 10th house of career in this chart. The reason I was saying it was kind of a dangerous time, though, is mainly because the rising sign for this chart is in a nakshatra called Mula, which is a very destructive. It's transformative, but it's also a very destructive nakshatra. And I just happened to pull this chart up when I was looking. It's the first time I've had to do the chart this weekend, and we have both a chance to be ignorant. Okay, so monetarily we have some relatively tough times. Saturn is retrograde. That gives us a chance to correct it. Jupiter is retrograde, although Saturn is aspecting Jupiter. That gives us a chance to correct diplomatic relations or to make up for stupid mistakes that have been made before. It doesn't look like, and this also gives the government or leadership a chance to atone for, to essentially wipe the slate clean and start with a new approach to government. Since Saturn is aspecting that Jupiter right now, I don't think you're going to see that happen, but we can always hope. And also, I think it's one of the things I've noticed is there seems to be, and this isn't a new phenomenon, but it's sort of like underscored over the past week or so, a tendency towards increasing social violence in the world in places that we would never normally expect it happening. So there have been more violent attacks on conservatives lately. So that's the Saturn aspecting Jupiter. And there have also been more attacks. Mars is aspecting Saturn, so we're getting more, trying to think of a good way to say this without sounding offensive, more, excuse me. I can't talk right now. More more stupidity and digging in with policies that don't seem to be working, or 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 denial of policies that don't seem to be working. So that's true not only in the United States but around the world. I think so. I'm not a conservative, so keep this in mind when I'm saying these things. But some of the things that have been tried over the past couple of years haven't worked. I'm really concerned about the tightening money situation, not only in the United States, but around the world, because I think that when you do something like that, it hits a kind of a tipping point, and you can end up in a long recession like we encountered in the 1980s. And I think I'm more concerned about that happening now than I was before, because nobody's showing signs of pulling back, and they probably won't show signs of pulling back until both Saturn and Jupiter go direct and they start seeing the consequences of what they're doing. Now they can change direction. Okay, so I'm not an economic expert, but this chart is really not a good chart. Jupiter's retrograde, Mercury's retrograde. There's a lot of bad communications coming out from every side right now, just like really misrepresentative stuff. And again, this is, like I said, it's true not only in this country, but around the world. So we have a lot of really bad policies because we're trying to be perfect, and perfection is not achievable in this world. So what does this mean? Well, diplomatic failures, although they could be corrected. Antagonisms, because Mars is in the 6th house, leading to losses and financial constrictions. And partnerships dissolving because of K2 in the 11th house. Now, the good part of this is we do have a chance to start over. Next Sunday, Mercury goes direct. Between Saturday and Sunday, Mercury goes direct. Venus will be debilitated. So when a planet's debilitated, it's in its weakest possible point in the chart. So you're going to see a lot of people kind of depressed, unoptimistic. Saturn's aspecting Jupiter, that'll kind of add on to that. And certain other parties just really hostile to any attempt at reconciliation or any attempt at reconciliation, because the other side's the enemy and they can't change. And these next 2 months will give us a chance to overcome that, but it doesn't look, unfortunately, it doesn't look optimistic. I am holding out some hope that when Jupiter goes direct over the next couple of months, that people will essentially start to see the fruits of some of these policies. We will probably see the war in Russia escalate over the next couple of months. But I'm optimistic there'll be an attempt to negotiate a ceasefire before January, and I'm semi-optimistic that we won't see a war break out, that we won't see an escalation of the war. This is kind of dicey right now. This situation is kind of bad right now, but you have a destructive nakshatra right now, which indicates change. I mean, that's a good thing. Change is a good thing. Saturn's in the 2nd house of money, so that indicates financial stress. Jupiter's in the 4th house of society, basically. So people are trying to change society, but they're doing it relatively stupidly. I'm not afraid to say that. Rahu's in the 5th. Governments have kind of a legacy from this combination of doing the wrong thing or making the wrong judgments. 6th house has Mars, so there's more of a tendency to blow up. I've certainly felt it over the past couple of days. It's tempered down a little bit. because the moon is no longer being aspected by Mars, which is a relief. But we also have Mercury retrograde, gaining weakness, increasing in weakness as it goes towards the beginning of the sign, and also, at least from this chart, the moon itself is very weak. So a lot of us are going to feel pessimistic for the next week or so, I think, and that's mainly because of the moon will be passing over some difficult signs. Now, this Mars does have a very concrete effect. It causes earthquakes. It causes disasters. If Venus is retrograde, there's a lot of unhappiness. Venus will be combust for the next couple of months, and that means it's really too close to the sun. It'll give people a chance to beautify or enhance themselves. That's one positive attribute to it. But I think one of the problems we're running into, especially over today and really through Friday, roughly, is that the moon's going to be passing through some difficult signs. The moon's in Virgo right now, which is not necessarily a difficult sign for it. It's actually a constructive building sign. But then it passes over K2, and that'll give some problems or some breakages or some accidents. And then it passes over Scorpio, which is not really a good combination. Or it's really not a good placement. The moon is debilitated in Scorpio. So until roughly Wednesday, we're going to be a little bit downhearted, a little bit pessimistic about things. And like I said, kind of aggressive. I think both sides of the political fence are going to be really, really irritated with each other. And in terms of, you'll even see some religious leaders being pessimistic, encouraging people to hoard food, and it's not like it's the end times, but it's more like trying to think of a good way to put it. It's more like people are looking at the worst case scenarios and making judgments from that. Jupiter Jupiter in its own sign, usually a good phenomenon. Aspecting Venus, or Venus being very strong, will tend to bring really strong rains, and that's what happened in Puerto Rico. Now, one of the things that I didn't point out was that we have Saturn aspecting Jupiter, so Jupiter is going to do some damage from this particular transit. Mars is in an Earth sign, so really the only water sign that's active is Pisces. But K2 can also cause floods. It can also cause natural catastrophes, and that's what happened in Puerto Rico over the past few days. And it's also happening in Pakistan with flooding. So I think you're going to continue to see a lot of the water damage issues that we've been seeing over the past few months, and also some potential for earthquakes when Mars goes backwards. This will be around mid-October. It'll get most intense around the end of October through around November 6th, and then it'll back off just a little bit. So again, it's important to be careful, make sure your insurance is paid up, and also use these particular transits as ways to help yourself, ways to improve yourself, ways to change bad habits. Mars is in the 6th house, good times to take up exercise, good time to change eating habits, good times to take control of your finances, okay? So all these things, you're being given these breaks that feel unnatural, but are really allowing us to do a reset. Okay. And also to cool down a little bit, but a lot of that's not happening, unfortunately. And the reason it's not happening is because Mars is aspecting Saturn, and that tends to make us a bit stupid, to be honest. Makes us impulsively stupid. Mars is not aspecting Saturn. Mars is aspecting Mula Nakshatra, or is aspecting Sagittarius, and it's also aspecting. It was aspecting the moon sign. That's what made us angry. But the moon is giving us a chance to rebuild, a chance to reassert ourselves. So let's look at the locational chart and see where the effects will be felt most strongly. Okay. See if I can get that chart up. It's not showing. Okay. There we go. Okay, so here's the chart. Much fuller. So, all right. So Rahu is giving panic connected with governments. That's where a lot of the more conservative rhetoric is coming from. The more liberal rhetoric is coming from the other side. It's essentially saying we have to attack these people. And there's a Saturn Rahu intersection in the mid-Pacific, not the mid-Pacific, but between Hawaii and the West Coast. So that particular attribute is really affecting the area just to the east of Alaska in Canada. And Rahu panic is also hitting the west coast of Canada, hitting a little bit in Washington and Oregon. So you'll probably see some changes. And there's a Mars line running between, descending Mars line running between the Rahu line and in Canada and Texas. So this looks interesting. I'm going to talk about Texas and the Midwest in a second, but this part of the country and also this part of Mexico looks like it's in a bit of an uproar lately, mainly because of foreign influences that are reaching up as far as Canada, and also people are getting angry in Mexico, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, and Oregon, okay, and Washington State, excuse me. So those parts of the country, so this entire part of the country from roughly Montana westward looks like it's going to be signaling a lot of change, a lot of interest in changing direction. And also over here, we have over near Austin, we have a potential for new beginnings or new outlooks and some legal matters connected with the government around Texas. So you may see Governor Abbott charged with something. There's not really a lot happening outside of these states in the United States, except if we go up to Michigan and we go up to essentially Iowa and Michigan, and there's some potential for violence in very strongly in the middle of Texas and um, Mexico down around this region, but especially up around Michigan and the Great Lakes area, mainly because the Mars line is going through there. There may even be some kind of uh, nat- natural catastrophes in this part of the country. So watch this part of the country, especially up around Michigan, fairly closely, and also around, it looks like Oklahoma and um, down here in the Panhandle. It's called the Panhandle of Texas, and also in South America. There are a lot of Mars lines running through running through Mexico. God, there's a lot of Mars lines. Okay, so you have an intersection right here, and I have to leave a map in Oklahoma, and I believe that's Iowa. And so I would keep close eyes on that part of the world. There's nothing really happening in Washington proper right now, but you can expect some panic on the eastern seaboard. And also, I would say a lot of negative or intensely negative publicity. I know that Governor DeSantis is under fire for shipping immigrants to the United States. I also know that Brazil is um, facing some very difficult moments right now, and it looks like Paraguay and Uruguay are as well. And there's panic up around um, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember the name of the country, Guyana, in South America. So I think um, you I think you're going to see um, not a lot of activity in Brazil, but certainly some signs of economic slowdown, and also, especially down by Uruguay and Paraguay, some panics connected with currency. The other parts of the world we want to look at is Mars going over Iceland and close to the Azores, not right on top of it. But Iceland has a Rahu line connected with it, or a Saturn line connected with it, excuse me. And that could cause a lot of economic fallout or panic for Iceland. Also, there's a lot of activity happening in Western Europe, especially in the British Isles, what are commonly called the British Isles, and in Spain, in Portugal, and Western Africa. So around Libya, Morocco, that part, um, and also Niger and Ghana, I believe, and I think, and also down as far south as the Ivory Coast and Gabon. So I think you're going to see a lot of shakeups in this part of the world overall. Some potential for natural for weather-based catastrophes, unfortunately, and I think also, at least from this chart, even France will be involved in this. Rahu is very prominent god in this chart. So it's passing through Germany, it's passing close to Sweden, it's passing through Austria, down into Greece, down into Algeria, down into Sudan, and through Egypt as well, and all the way down into Mozambique, Angola, and Madagascar. So I think I pay close watch to panics in those parts of the world. Okay, especially financial panics because of, and also fear because of Rahu um, hitting that part of the world pretty strongly. There's also a Saturn line. Turkey and parts of Eastern Europe are heavily, and also Saudi Arabia and Egypt are heavily affected by Rahu and Saturn. So I think you'll see kind of an economic decline. There may even be some natural catastrophes in Turkey. I'm a little bit hesitant to call them earthquakes. But the level of activity has been increasing in that part of the world recently. So I don't think we're going to see anything immediately unless Mars leaves again. But I think the other parts of the world that we want to look at strongly are is Saturn line and a Mars line. Sort of like right near former Soviet socialist republics, places like Kazakhstan, although it's not quite there, and I'm sorry, not Kazakhstan, Iran, Ukraine, and definitely military activity here. There's just a lot of sadness and bitterness there. The other parts of the world, and if we get down to the tip of Saudi Arabia, down here and over Ethiopia, you'll see a Mars line there. So that part of the world is probably a little bit earthquake prone too. Let's see now. When in this chart we also have a Mars line indicating violence running through Saudi Arabia, and also a cluster of activity over India. Some of it good, some of it not so good. And I think you'll see India go through kind of an economic crisis or a crisis in government over the next month or so. The other part that's really problematic is Rahu over China and over Russia. Although it's in the less sparsely populated parts of Russia. But basically from this map, Rahu especially as we head towards Bengal in India, and also towards Taiwan and off the coast of China. These look kind of dangerous. Is that a Mars line? I can't tell. It's a Saturn line intersecting Rahu. So I would keep my eye on those parts of the world, especially Eastern China and the Philippines. And finally, last but not least, we have a Rahu line. We have both a Saturn descending line and a Rahu line. So, and there's a Mars line down in Indonesia. Mars is strong positionally in the chart. I think you'll start to see some extra accidents or extra problems develop for people in New Zealand. Okay, so that's about it for me. Let's go to the actual, so to recap, these are the areas I would pay really close attention to. Right over here in the United States and in Mexico, over here in Brazil, and let's see now. Over here in the British Isles and the west coast of Africa, including as far south as the Ivory Coast in Gabon, and as far north as Libya and Morocco, and also some problems in Algeria through Sudan, and let me see now. Um, I know I'm pausing a little bit, but I'm stopping to think a little bit about this map. So there seems to be a lot of spots that are afflicted. The only spots that aren't afflicted seem to be uh, sub Africa below Zimbabwe, and let's see now, Southeast Asia was used to be called Southeast Asia, and parts of the west coast of South America. So all in all, that's a challenging combination. So be careful out there. Also, try to be nice to one another. I know that sounds like really lame, but try to be nice. Try to use the energy from Mars to improve yourself. Try not to use it to put other people down or be nasty to other people. So let's look at the individual charts for this week. And Rahu, as normal, is in Aries in the first house. The Lord of the first house in the second house. So again, good for financial growth, good for ending projects connected with real estate, good for claiming some money from those things. Rahu in the first house is never satisfied. So people who have planets here, or people who have any kind of activity, or people should watch out for their heads too, because Rahu can cause accidents. The same is true of Ketu in the seventh house in Libra. People who are Aries rising should be careful about urinary problems, problems right below the belt, and just be cautious about them. Mars is in the second, as we've said already, so it's good for gathering money. Moon, Venus, Sun, Mercury are all in the sixth house, so they're essentially fighting off enemies for the sun. And Saturn is in the 10th house, aspecting Jupiter in the 12th house, so this diminishes the losses for the sun. So overall, not too great domestically, because the Lord of the seventh is combust, but it's fine. Let's see now. Let's go to the next one. Taurus has Mars in the first house, and the Lord of the second house is in the fifth, so that gives the possibility of hearing from old romantic partners. And also from this chart, we have four planets in the house of disease. So this is going to mean new diseases or new illnesses for this sign. Let's see now but career-wise, it looks fine. It looks like it's established a high level of authority, and it's very good, and some good commercial gains. For Gemini has Mercury in the fourth house retrograde, so there is a reconsideration of family life going on for a lot of Geminis right now. And this is essentially June 15th to July 20th. This is what's called military time we're using on these things, on these charts. And let's see now. Gemini has Mercury in the fourth house, so it's good for intelligence. 10th house has, excuse me, let's see. Um, for so let's go on for Gemini. Gemini has um 4 planets, so this should be a good period for Taurus. Gemini has 4 planets in the fourth house, um, so there'll be a lot of focus on home life, a lot of focus maybe on family members' health, and a lot of focus on children. Um, Saturn's in the eighth, so some disappointment with a relationship partner, although a relationship partner will be okay. Career looks fine for the sign. This sign is making a lot of progress in career and reputation. Um, for Cancer, Cancer is has the moon in the third house. The Lord of the sign is in the third house, along with Mercury and Venus and the Sun. So this gives the sign a great chance to start over again. Saturn's still in the seventh house. They can reconsider bad relationships if they want to. This is a time when they have a little bit of freedom. K2's in the fourth house, so there's a little bit of interest in changing home life or getting a new home. And the fifth house, Lord Mars, is in the 11th house, so there's good potential for financial gains. Jupiter's in the eighth house, some possible legacies coming in. Saturn's in the sixth, more enemies and more competition. For Leo, Leo has the sun in the second house, along with an entire cluster of planets, good for financial growth. K2's in the is in the third house, so this particular sign will show a lot of ambition, a lot of courage this month. And let's see now, Mars rules the fourth house, but is in the 10th house, so the person's more focused on career. Jupiter rules is in the sixth house and sits in the sixth house, so this indicates overcoming diseases through care. I'm sorry, Jupiter's in the fifth house for Leo. My apologies. Jupiter rules the fifth house for Leo and is placed in the eighth house, so that's actually good for overcoming illnesses, as well as overcoming chronic illnesses. Saturn's in the sixth, so acute illnesses will stick around, like health issues connected with confidence and things like that. Jupiter's in the eighth, so there'll be a lot of interest in doing investigation behind the scenes. Rahu's in the ninth house, so that'll give the sign some good luck. Mars is in the 10th. Career is very strong for this sign. Let's see now. For Virgo has Mercury in the first house, and its own sign has Venus, which is also considered to be a very good planet. It's a good money producing planet for Virgo. But also, and Lord of the 11th is in the first house, but so is the Lord of the 12th. So this can mean loss of money to government or loss of money due to fees. K2 is in the second house, so this sign will find it difficult to communicate properly or communicate effectively. And there'll be some misjudgment about money too, by the way. Let's see now. Scorpio is the third house. Lord of Scorpio is in the ninth, so this gives this sign good financial luck. Fulfillment of desires connected with finances, and let's see now. Jupiter rules the fourth house is in the seventh house, so this gives new possibility of relationships, starting business relationships. Although Saturn, the people will be attracted to individuals who are really not appropriate or not of the same status or interests as they are. So when I'm saying appropriate, it doesn't have to be a rich person marrying a rich person or a poor person marrying a poor person. I'm saying more about interest, education, things that people value in life. Rahu's in the eighth house, so there'll be a lot of focus on financial growth and investments with some anxiety about it. Mars is in the ninth. This is actually a good combination for this because it'll give some good career growth. And also contact with teachers or people who can give you good advice. And the 10th Lord is in the first house, along with the 11th Lord, so that's good for financial growth. Libra still has K2 in the first house. It can make Libra go a little bit under-recognized or have difficulty understanding things. Saturn aspects that K2 placement. That's going to stay there until really next January. So, but again, this sign does have a chance to learn new things, learn new topic areas, expand its knowledge base. Jupiter's in the sixth house, so it gives this sign the ability to defeat enemies. Rahu's in the seventh house. The person gets attracted to exotic or foreign or unusual relationship partners. Mars is in the eighth, but not a good time to choose relationship partners because the person will be more motivated by sexual attraction than by compatibility. Let's see now. And finally, we have Moon, Mercury, Sun, Venus, all in the 12th house in Virgo. It's good for spiritual activity, good for some monetary activity. Venus and Mercury in the 12th house allow the persons to actually save money. But the Sun and Moon are a little bit difficult because it's the 11th and the 10th Lord there. So that indicates career will tend to be a little bit changeable and money will be a little bit unstable. For Scorpio, Scorpio has Mars in the 7th house. So a lot of focus on relationship life, but also a lot of arguments. Jupiter rules the 2nd house in this chart and is placed in the 5th house. So again, like through children in this chart. Rahu's in Saturn's in the 2nd. So again, is in the 3rd again. So some courage and bravery for this sign. And Rahu's in the 6th. So some exotic or unusual diseases hitting this particular sign. And we have a cluster of planets in the 11th house. So this sign should do pretty well financially this month or this week. For Capricorn, Capricorn has Saturn in it, aspecting Jupiter, and aspecting K2. So Saturn is dominating this chart again. It's not as strong as it usually is. Jupiter is actually stronger in terms of raw strength. But let's see now, and Mercury is really the strongest planet because it's an exaltation sign. But at least for this chart, Rahu in the fourth house. So Jupiter gives this sign a little bit less ambition than normal. Rahu in the fourth, dissatisfaction with home life, and Mars in the fifth, arguments with children or arguments with lovers. Sixth house has no planets in it. The Lord of the sixth is in the ninth house. So again, good experiences with doctors or medical professionals. And also good luck in relationship life. But again, some problems with relationship partners, having maybe some possible affairs or having problems being understood by the relationship partner. For Aquarius has no planets in the sign. It's hemmed in between Saturn and Jupiter, which make it both expansive and financially improving, and also spending at the same time. So it's an interesting combination. The money side weighs a little bit more heavily than the expenditure side, but both are pretty intense. And Mars is placed in the fourth house, so there'll be some arguments connected with relationship life because it's aspect in the seventh. Eighth house has Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Sun in it, so this will give unexpected windfalls to the sign. K2's in the ninth house, so unexpected spiritual development. So people will actually start to listen to you, but you won't achieve any fame or recognition for it for about another year or so. Finally, in this chart, Saturn is in the 12th house, so that tends to give more potential for damage from earthquakes or from natural events occurring than other combinations. And finally, getting to Pisces. Pisces has Jupiter in the first house, Rahu's and Aries in the second house. So that's going to make this sign very strongly motivated towards money. Mars is in the third house, very courageous, very able to do what it wants to do. You see a cluster of planets in the seventh house. That means new partnerships and new expansion of business. So you'll actually start to see some good things happening for Pisces. K2 is in the eighth house, and that gives some interference or obstruction with following spiritual or occult traditions. And finally, getting on to Saturn. Saturn's in the 11th house, aspecting the first house. So this sign will feel a little bit less optimistic than it normally does. A little bit less convinced it can progress spiritually. So that's it in a nutshell for this week. Stay tuned on Tuesday for the James Braha interview, and I'll broadcast that after the interview has occurred. If there's anything you'd like me to ask James, please let me know. I can be reached at 508-525-0001 by text or at GaryGomesG@gmail.com. Again, some exciting things coming up for this channel. I will be broadcasting much more frequently, starting within about a week and a half. And you'll start to see some more things coming on, additional channels in the upcoming months. The school is still ongoing, and the book is still in the process of being finished, but we will get it done. So that's it for me. I hope you all have a great week. I love you all, and namaste. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Bye. And sorry, I got a little bit sleepy at various times. It's been a long weekend. Namaste, and God bless your ancestors.